I am a fan of budget EFI, and you can probably tell that by looking around at the projects on the channel. I've done one Gen 3 Hemi swap, but I really like the Mopar Magnum swaps. I've done quite a few, and I'm going to do another one here, but this one is not going to be my vehicle.
Welcome to the Restore It Ralph channel. Today I'm back out in the shop. I'm going to work on a wiring harness for a future upcoming project. What I've got here is a 1996 or 97 Dodge Ram pickup truck harness set up for a Magnum V8 and 46RE automatic. So this is going to be an OBD2 swap harness for a future Magnum project. This harness is going into my cousin John's truck. This is mine, but his looks very similar to it. His is a 1946 Ford pickup truck. I used to own it. His dad put it together back in the day. It's got a EFI 5.2 Magnum swap in it right now. He's going to put a EFI 5.9 Magnum with a 46RE OBD2, and eventually he's got a little twin turbo setup that we're probably going to set up on the truck. So it should be pretty cool. This is the first step of that transformation though. One of the first steps I take in making one of these factory harnesses into like a standalone swap harness is I print out the connector pinouts for the powertrain control module. So this is an OBD2, so it's got three connectors. Oops, staples bad. C1, C2, and C3. And so what I can go through is look at the connector, see which wires I need, look at the harness, and shouldn't really have to take apart like the injector harness and all that stuff up there. Where I'm going to be focusing on is up here where the PCM connects, and then down here is like where the body connectors go, where it would go to the factory style distribution block and then to the body harness. So a lot of times I can just pull stuff out of here, put it into one of those aftermarket fuse blocks, and then it pretty much is plug and play if you have like a fuel system hooked up 12 volts all the time and 12 volts with ignition run. So if I look at connector 1 on the powertrain control module, fused ignition switch input, start run, that is cavity A2. It is a light green with black wire. So if I come over here to connector 1, start looking, and that looks like a light green with a black stripe on it. If I look at the connector here, that's upside down. I'll look at this and you can see that there's actually little numbers on it. So I said that was A2. That's the one right there. So what I can do is, if I had an actual wiring schematic for this particular truck, I don't right now, but I have a hunch because I've done a couple of these before. If I look over at this body connector, I can see that probably this is going to have to get, well, fused ignition switch input, so 12 volts in start and run. So it's got to get it from somewhere. It's probably going to get it from the PDC. If I look at this connector, I see that there is a light green with black wire on it. So I'm going to check and see if I have continuity from that pin to that pin, and then I can extract this wire here and know that I'm going to use that for 12 volts. I'll mark that for the moment, and then when I get ready to put this harness in a vehicle, I can either run it then or run it to one of those universal fuse or relay panels. So I've got my meter hooked up to the pin at the PCM connector. I've got my meter set on ohms of resistance, and then I'm going to take my other lead and put it on the wire. I think it is. Let's see what we've got. Continuity. All right, so that's going to be my ignition switch input. So I'm going to take that out of this connector and mark it 12 volts start run, and then move on to the next couple wires here. Got a bunch of wires separated and continuity checked to the PDC and the PCM connector there. I've got some wires separated. These are going to go into the cab. So like these, got some AC requests, overdrive switch, stuff for the data link connector and malfunction indicator lamp. This is going to be all stuff that goes into the PDC. So controlling the trans relays, the ASD relay, and the fuel pump relays. So pretty much this thing, I could probably get a truck running on this right now. I haven't cleared out the rest of these wires because I'm not 100% sure what they go to. I'm sure they're pretty much extra stuff, but I'd rather have them and not need them than need them and not have them.
I was able to find the body connector pinouts, and that helped me figure out what I wanted to keep and what I needed to keep out of the original harness.
So pretty much every wire is accounted for here. I've got maybe some extra wires for future expansion. This is for like cruise control stuff. This is all the stuff that goes into the cab. Some of it may or may not be used right this moment, but I'll have indicator lights and good stuff like that for malfunction indicator, charging light, trans temp, that kind of stuff. What I'm going to be focusing on now is here's all the stuff that goes into the PDC, power distribution center, and I've got myself a cheap Amazon power distribution center. I've used these a couple times and they're pretty handy. They got 6 relays in it, some fuse areas, and then I can just terminate them directly into it, and it should be kind of a hook up 3-4 wires when we get to the truck, and it should be ready to go. So I've got the power distribution center all laid out. AC is inoperable right now, but it's still in the harness, so it wouldn't be hard to add that. And then everything else is set up. The only thing is I need to add are ignition on powers up to the fuses and battery voltage up to the fuses. So depending on which one, ASD is going to get power with ignition on, fuel pump, same thing. The other ones could have power all the time on pin 30, but actually all of them could. It just kind of depends on which way I'm going to wire it. So, but we will decide that when we get to the truck, and that should not be too far off. The harness is pretty much ready to put in the vehicle. My 1942 Ford truck is set up very similar to my cousin's truck, where that harness is going to go in. Mine is still an OBD1 style, so it's got the older style S-Spec PCM. It's got one of those Amazon fuse and relay holders there. It's got an old Mopar starter relay, and then it's got pretty much a factory 90s engine with 90s wire harness. Mine is a manual transmission, his is an automatic, and it's got a 46RH in it right now with OBD1, so that's why we're changing it over to OBD2 so we can run the 46RE transmission in it and then have the tuning capabilities of the JTEC OBD2 PCM. Since Dirty Harry now has a Terminator X installed, I do not need the OBD2 port, so I'm going to remove this from this car and use it in the new harness I'm building. A couple bolts and some wire snips and we'll get this thing out of here. OBD2 port is out, so now I can install this when I get to the truck, wire it up. I can use a scan tool or HP tuners to tune that truck when I get to, just like I did with the Diplomat. After a few hours over a couple nights here, this harness is done. Got a PDC that all I have to do is run powers and grounds to. I've got a few, that's a lot, but a few wires that I got to hook up to the truck. Some of these will be later on when we decide what to do with the gauge cluster and stuff like that. We've got transmission control over here and then the engine control over here. So pretty much this thing is ready to be put in the truck, and then all the fun stuff happens after that. Well, I took this Junkyard harness and turned it into a standalone harness, and we'll be ready to install that on the truck here soon. If you're interested in the progress on the 46 Ford pickup truck with the OBD2 swap, stay tuned. I'll be heading to my cousin's house to help install this thing soon and hopefully get this thing fired up. As always, thanks for watching, and like, comment, and subscribe to keep up with projects on the Restore It Ralph channel.